Welcome to the Fulcrum Democracy Forum. My name is Hugo Balta, Executive Editor with the Fulcrum, a daily cross-partisan news publication that engages citizens in evolving government to better meet the needs of all people. To that end, we strive to share many perspectives to widen our readers' viewpoints. For this episode, I'm joined by the publishers of the Fulcrum, Nevins and Kristina Becvar, for what we hope will be regular conversations we share with you about different topics that consistently surface on the digital publication. Today, we will discuss diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. Meta recently announced it's ending its DEI programs, becoming the latest company to pull back from such practices in the wake of pressure from conservative critics and customers. However, this month, Costco's board of directors rejected requests to remove its DEI program, which shareholders described as illegal discrimination, prompting backlash from members of the MAGA movement. President-elect Donald Trump has disparaged DEI. Let's begin with you, David. You wrote a column on the Fulcrum titled, "It is Time to Rethink DEI." Tell us about that.
Well, thank you, Hugo. I appreciate it. Well, the title itself actually aroused some passions and emotions because it was interpreted by some, perhaps those on the right, that it meant abandoning it, and those on the left thought the same thing. But rethinking means exactly that. The whole subject of diversity, equity, and inclusion has been politicized by both the left and the right. And in the last election, it was extremely obvious that was the case. And the reality is our nation is a pluralistic society. We have a wide range of ethnic backgrounds, racial backgrounds, religious backgrounds, sexual orientation backgrounds and preferences. And if we don't figure out how to all live together as a nation, we're not going to succeed. So the Fulcrum, which believes in lowering the temperature, in getting people to have a bit of deductive reasoning where they don't have the opinion first and they absorb facts and information and then come to solutions. We thought this was a critically important discussion for our nation to have. And that was the essence of the writing, to lower the temperature, to bring diverse voices into the conversation, and to really help our country address this critically important issue.
A couple of things that you said that resonate with me, of course, is solutions, right? The Fulcrum is a platform for thought leaders to come together and not just highlight issues that challenge our different communities, but also what are those solutions, and then also the multifacetedness of diversity, equity, and inclusion that too often is one-dimensional, just to be about the optics of diversity, equity, and inclusion, primarily race and perceived gender. Kristina, in regards to what David said about the Fulcrum lowering the temperature, tell us your thoughts about how DEI shows up on the Fulcrum and what the Fulcrum is looking to achieve, as David said, be able to have discussions and I think also debate of some of the challenges and opportunities of DEI.
Yes. So the piece that David wrote, rethinking DEI, I saw what he saw, which is this instant reaction to words, and that is to me kind of the crux of the whole debate here around DEI, because the term has been used by those that are looking to sow conflict and benefit from it, and we've gotten away from the discussion of what that even means. So, for example, there's a lot of storytelling that serves specific point of view. So in the Fulcrum, we're trying to never do that. We're not trying to serve any one point of view. We're trying to serve a 360 picture, snapshot of a topic and get a real discussion started that doesn't play into those perspectives that folks are building the story around. I think about the LA Fire Department issue that just came up in the last week, where there's a almost instantaneous response on social media and through the right-leaning media sources about how we've already decided that the cause of this fire being so destructive is because there is a queer woman in charge of the LA Fire Department, and DEI gone amok has destroyed LA. And there's so many things that were assumptions in that onslaught of thought leaders pushing that dialogue out that it just became a pushback against DEI, but it's not. It's a pushback against potentially a female running the department without having any questions of, was she qualified? Is she a queer woman? Just all these assumptions are being made before the discussion's happening to say, did she get the role because she was qualified? Did she mess up? That's possible too. So it doesn't mean that every pushback against the politicization of DEI is just a, knee-jerk reaction the other way. It means, no, I really want to know the facts so that we can have a reasonable discussion about this. And to me, that is what the Fulcrum is for.
One of the things that you mentioned, the criticism of the fire department in the response in the California wildfires, and this week we're seeing the first of many Senate hearings when it comes to Donald Trump's picks for his cabinet. And one of the words that right out of the gate popped up was meritocracy, 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 as a counter to diversity, equity, and inclusion, as if both can't coexist. Why can't a candidate be fulfill or be the full spectrum of DEI as well as apply meritocracy, meaning they've earned that slot, based on their experience and their both their lived experiences and their professional experiences. David, I one of the things that you've mentioned in conversations that we've had, that we've kind of come full circle, right? A lot of the DEI discussion, and especially a lot of initiatives and even positions around diversity, equity, and inclusion were born in the aftermath of the killing of George Floyd, the divisiveness of the 2020 election, and COVID-19, and all of the disparities that we saw with the response, and really the social determinants of health when it comes to disparities with marginalized communities. Tell us a little bit about how we've gone from DEI leading a lot of positive initiatives to now it being a negative, and beginning with corporate America being put on the wayside.
Well, part of it has to do with just the nature of politics in America, that you gain traction and popularity often by exaggerating, uh, by putting down the other side. Both sides have these key words that they use that really gets us away from the discussion. But to more specifically answer your question, certainly the Supreme Court ruling on affirmative action played into this quite a bit, in that the Supreme Court ruled that affirmative action, which is instituted by many, particularly universities across the nation, was no longer, I believe the term would be legal, and it's being still adjudicated as to variations thereof. But I think that heightened the discussion considerably, and through that heightened discussion, for the first time in many years, I've heard questioning of equity. But equity to some means, and it's been turned into a political term. It means, DEI people means everybody should be equal, when we need these deep discussions as to, well, perhaps just it means equality of opportunity. And then a term like equality of opportunity, which I think all Americans, that's the essence of what all Americans believe in, that every American should have the right, the ability, and equal opportunity to succeed. So that's part of the rethinking, I believe, that I really believe all Americans believe every human being should have dignity. So maybe if we change some of these words that are pejorative or create knee-jerk reactions, we can really come to what binds us together as a nation, in terms of believing that all Americans deserve an equal opportunity, and all Americans deserve dignity. So how can we as a nation achieve that?
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think too often equity and equality are used interchangeably, and I think the one of the a lot of what DEI initiatives look to do is even the playing field so that everybody gets a fair shot at at accomplishing their goals, at fulfilling the American dream. And I also agree with you in that the strength of our country is in its diversity, right? We want to celebrate and harness what we have in common, but we also want to create a space to leverage the things that makes us different. That has always been the competitive edge of our country from 1776 till today, and it's something that will continue to help us as we continue to move bravely forward in this American experiment. Christina, one of the things that we've seen, especially after the November election, is again beginning with corporate America, over and over again, companies, organizations dropping DEI, some of it just kind of testing the waters. And obviously, I'm always very curious, what would have happened if Harris would have won the election? Would, Mark Zuckerberg come out and say, we're going to drop our DEI initiatives? A lot of that is just testing the waters and the temperature of the water, and kind of a knee-jerk reaction politically, because of fear of what would happen from a business standpoint. But for us as a news and information organization, when it comes to DEI, do you feel any pressure in regards to pivoting with DEI in any shape or form?
Definitely. We have specifically the audiences we serve are working in spaces about bridging divides and about, peace building and making a more perfect union. And one of the struggles that it's no secret we've had is attracting folks from the right to join this movement and this field of practice. And so when this has become politicized as a left-right issue, of course, we're going to be encouraged to hands off anything that could possibly derail our efforts to align with folks on the right and bring them into the space. So I feel like that's one of the big pressures we have, but that's nothing new for us because we're always walking a line of trying to be responsible to the truth and also respect that everyone's trying to navigate the cultural, storms in the best way they can. I think the best way that we can, get through this is by reminding folks that um, words have power. And as much as we want to make sure we're very aware of, trigger words that research tells us, sets off folks on the left and right and precludes them from listening, we also want to make sure that we don't let conflict profiteers tell us what words we can use and to warp these meanings of words. And so I feel like we want to make sure that we remind folks what these terms mean and reignite conversations, because when it comes to the politics is one thing, like you said, what would happen if Harris would have won? But there's another aspect of this, that these companies are not only responding to political ideas, but they're responding to the social and the general public and those who they serve and their customers. And so the customers and the employees demanded a discussion about DEI in 2020. And now this year, they're demanding another discussion. And how can we help them have that discussion in a healthy way and not back away from it is one of, I think, the things the Fulcrum's called to do.
Yeah, and a very important discussion to have, I think, and I've shared with both of you that I do feel that part of, as David mentioned, rethinking DEI is changing the narrative from a negative to a positive. And I think as someone who has is a diversity, equity, and inclusion practitioner, and in many of the organizations that I've had the privilege to work with in leading some of these efforts, a lot of the C-suite direction around DEI has been about solving a problem, whether it's we are underperforming with a particular demographic and looking at the population of employees and then making specific hiring based on that. I think that all of that should be part of the conversation. But I think when we're faced with a negative, there's a rush to fix a problem, and when you rush to do anything, that's when you make mistakes. I think with DEI, really it is an opportunity to be realized, and when we are faced with an opportunity, we naturally step back to take a look at this opportunity. We're organically inclusive in inviting others to help us realize that opportunity and strategize around it. David, one of the things that we pride ourselves with the Fulcrum is that we attract many thought leaders from many different facets of society, both because from lived experiences and the work that they do. When it comes to DEI and providing them direction in regards to, again, providing a platform to have those discussions and debate, because I think one of the things that Kristina said is very important. We want to hear from all different facets, right? From political ideologies to experiences. What is the recommendation, perhaps, or the request from thought leaders when it comes to DEI and providing us some of those writings?
Well, anybody that listens to this interview should get in touch with us if they feel they want their voice added to the discussion. We work with many groups to provide content to the Fulcrum so that sometimes people who feel their voice is not heard or they're underrepresented can have their voice heard, and the Fulcrum loves that part of what we do. I mean, it's wonderful where people who've never had more than 100 people listen to their ideas, have their writings read by 10,000 or more readers. And we are looking for that. We hope to have moderated discussions. We hope to have all of that. And what we hope emerges from this, and this is sometimes confusion about what the Fulcrum is because we're bipartisan, is we're not just splitting the middle between left and right. What our country needs is some new thinking, some recreative thinking. And that's what in my writing I meant by rethinking. We don't want to just split the difference. We want to find the best from the left, the best from the right, and hopefully the best ideas that no one has even thought of yet. That's what's going to that's what has made our country great, and that's what's going to make us great going forward.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, it's important to also to embrace feeling comfortable at feeling uncomfortable, because when we feel uncomfortable, that's because something new's happening, and that's where innovation lives. And I think it's very important as executive editor to seek out different voices, not only to provide perspectives and have a healthy discussion, but also have a healthy debate. And I think forums like this one are very important because too often, or more often than not, something writings can be one dimensional, and we need to hear our voices. We need to hear the inflection of our voices, and then also unpack some of what we're writing to be able to define better the meaning behind those words. As Kristina mentioned, words are very powerful. But in closing, Kristina, the same question to you as the publisher, co-publisher of the Fulcrum. What are you looking for in regards to authors, writers, potential authors and writers for the Fulcrum when it comes to DEI?
I think I'm looking for in the coming months, more than anything, across not just DEI but all areas, some healthy and helpful critique of what we're doing, not just as Americans but as practitioners in the healthy democracy space. I really think that we need to, as you just said, make ourselves a little uncomfortable, because not anything to do with the election outcome, but the way that it feels to live in America after this election. We haven't done our job in making America feel like it's a place where we can bridge divides and talk to each other in a healthier way to solve problems. We just haven't succeeded yet. And I say yet because I think it's still possible. So I would love to hear ideas, not just from folks that are just reading, but practitioners in the space as well that question themselves and others in how we're being successful.
Absolutely. And I agree with you 100%. I think, again, our perspective of DEI isn't what unfortunately has been categorized. It's not an us versus them. It's really about we, and there's a lot of space to have discussion and debate about the challenges and opportunities of DEI. And we, the publishers and executive editor of the Fulcrum, absolutely welcome you to please provide your thoughts in pen and paper, as we say, in order for us to lend our platform to having those discussions. David Nevins, Kristina Becvar, publishers of the Fulcrum, thank you very much for your time and for your candor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Hugo Balta, executive editor with the Fulcrum. Conversation and collaboration nurture a well-informed citizenry. Thank you all for spending this time with us.